1,000 fucking chapters, guys. We're finally here. Yep. Death Knight of Anime, bringing you my review for One Piece chapter 1,000. And right out the gate, and right out the gate, before I guess actually getting into the actual review, though, I do need to make a very heavy correction from my last One Piece manga review, which is that in that review I had stated I was curious as to which person on Kaido's crew had the fish fruit, only to realize after that though that Kaido himself was the one who possessed it. So yeah, it was a major flub on my part, but I do have to say that once again I have to commend Oda's ability in how he pretty much incorporates a mythical creature such as a dragon into One Piece while still keeping it grounded. Oddly kind of grounded within the rules he's pretty much set for the world, because now we pretty much know that what makes Kaido a dragon is still based in some form of reality with a pretty much animal that already exists. It's just a matter of what model fish fruit that Kaido actually possesses, I guess, because that's the one thing we don't know about Kaido's power, is that all we know is it's called the fish fruit, but we don't know what model it is. It's but just from Kaido's design, you can probably imagine it's basically based on some kind of a pretty much Japanese, like on a Japanese fish for sure. With all that being said, obviously the biggest question that needs to be answered though is was this worthy of the 1,000 was the events of this chapter worth being considered the 1,000 chapter, like the high mark of being of Oda having reached this point? And to put it simply, I'd say overall yes, but it's also it's weirdly kind of complicated, because in a way, yes, the events of this chapter have definitely overall earned that 1,000th, having reached this particular mark in the story. But at the same time, it's one of those things where while the chapter itself didn't necessarily give me what I was expecting, it still gave me so much to chew on. For example, based on the excerpts we hear being pretty much read from Odin's journal, whatever was at the end of Raftel had given Odin and possibly Roger the foresight to pretty much know, at least in broad strokes, of the events that were going on, that were going to transpire here in Wano, or more so, what would basically lead to Wano's liberation from basically Orochi and Kaido. So when Odin had returned to Wano after Orochi's takeover, that's pretty much when he realized what he pretty much needed to do, even if it meant sacrificing himself, because it was at that point of seeing Wano in the state that it was in, that he had already come to the realization that he himself wasn't going to be the one to save the country. And in a lot of ways, this chapter kind of gives us an interesting insight, in the sense where it's funny to think that both Roger and Odin had both taken steps in order to lay the groundwork in order for Kaido's defeat. Because with this revelation, it also kind of adds like new context to Roger's final moments on the execution platform. I mean, obviously, with all we know about Roger, I think he more than likely would have probably done what he did and rung in a new era regardless of the knowledge he had acquired from reaching the end of Raftel. But this definitely adds not only to the idea that he wasn't the one who would shake up the world in the way it needed to be, but also that Roger had kind of started the Great Pirate Era on a slightly false pretense, if you think about it. Because when you look at it as a whole, you look at what Prince Roger had done on the execution platform. His whole thing of telling people in order to seek out his treasure, in order to seek out the One Piece. The One Piece itself, it was really just a motivator in order to drive people to Wano, and to pretty much put everyone to the test in order to see who would pretty much be the pretty much fated group of pirates in order to finally end Kaido's reign. And to that end, we pretty much got that. That's what's basically led us to this point of seeing Luffy, Law, Kid, Zoro, just the Straw Hats and all their allies just come together in order to defeat Kaido. It's all led to this pretty much this moment more or less, and yeah, what a supreme team we have to do that with. Luffy, Zoro, Law, and Kid. This pretty much feels like pretty much classic One Piece, and this group's like pretty much first team up way back when archipelago, but amped up to 100, which are going to make the dynamics of this final brawl all the more interesting. Because right out of the gate, we know that Big Mom has a bone to pick with Luffy and Kid, so you know that Kid's probably gonna force her focus onto him in some way. Like, just knowing Kid, you and knowing how impulsive he is, I think in some ways, like, obviously Kid has a bit of a bone to pick with Kaido, obviously, so he's probably gonna fight him in some ways. But I think Big Mom is also gonna force Kid's focus onto her as well, because obviously the one thing with Big Mom is that I think even though Big Mom said that she didn't really care too much, Kid pretty much in past chapters did kind of fuck with her and her armor. Like, you remember, I think it was Tamago who said that, who's on Fishman Island, that Kid had basically destroyed a lot of her fleet. So I think even though she said she doesn't care, I think she does hold a bit of a grudge against them for that. So yeah, and of course, obviously, I think the main players who are going to deliver the final beatdown on Kaido are, of course, Luffy and Zoro. Which, to anyone who might get mad at how this chapter had ended, relax, guys. It's only the first strike. Doesn't mean jack shit. Like, the battle itself is far from over, especially with all the buildup we've gotten up to this point. And plus, generally, do you really still doubt the man at this point? Oda has proven to be a meticulous motherfucker that doesn't build up anything without a purpose. He's proven that time and again. And if you think about it in this context, it's kind of cool in order to think of it in a way that this rematch with Kaido is beginning in a very similar way to how Luffy and Kaido's first encounter went. But this time, I don't think Kaido is going to get back up, but is going to get back up by the pretty much end of the fight this time. And so I think this is going to be a very interesting mirror to pretty much how their first encounter went. And one thing I'll definitely be keeping my eye on this time around is not only how Oda handles the dynamics of this fight, just in general with so many players involved, but how he handles Zoro's pretty much use of Enma against Kaido. That's going to be the one thing I'll be paying the most attention to during this whole battle royale, because like the two key components right now of this fight with Kaido are going to be Luffy's control of his haki and Zoro's control of basically Enma. These are the two key components that I think are going to be key to winning this battle with Kaido, I think. And those are the things I'm going to be paying the most attention to. Also, even though they've lost, can we just spam W's for both Kinemon and the Yakuza 9? Because even though they didn't defeat Kaido, they still fought for as long as they could, and they went out fighting. And to be honest, that not only deserves respect in itself, but I'm still convinced that Kinemon and the Yakuza 9 as a whole had managed to injure Kaido in a major way that we aren't seeing yet, and that's already going to give Luffy and the others the advantage over him. So I don't think Kinemon, no need to worry. Just let Luffy take over from here. And I'll also be honest as well. We've basically seen many moments throughout the series where Luffy is really, he reaffirms his goal of becoming the Pirate King. But honestly, of all those moments we've seen of him just saying, "I'm going to be the Pirate King," I think that the one in this chapter is the most amazing example from how to do something like that. Of how to have the main character like just reaffirm their dream, their goal, all that thing, because you can pretty much tell, because in the way it was handled here, you can tell that even though they're still not technically like frightened of Luffy, even though they're still not like quaking in their boots or anything, they're still going to put up a fight against Luffy. You can tell that Luffy's punch did put a little bit of the fear of God into Kaido and Big Mom. So now it was a statement punch on Luffy's part. Like the whole Red Rock thing. Yeah, that was a statement punch, and it was saying to Big Mom and Kaido that just because you guys teamed up, it doesn't mean you're hot shit. You're still gonna have to put up a fight against us. So in that sense, I really love the whole reaffirmation of Luffy's dream in this chapter. Now I had previously mentioned at the beginning of the review that the chapter had given me a slightly different experience than what my previous expectations were, and in that sense, it was. But in that sense, it was still an amazing way in order to celebrate 1,000 chapters. In fact, I'll just say right now, even though there was one or two things I think didn't meet my expectations. Overall, there were still many other things I expected to see in this chapter, in a chapter mark like this. Like this is kind of the best way in order to celebrate 1,000 chapters. But if I were to take a moment and make a very small, like very minor critique, is that we didn't get all that much more in depth with the whole Will of D in this chapter, other than the fact that it's very heavily alluded to the idea that both Ace and Roger, in their own ways, had helped influence events up to this point. Had helped influence events up to this point. But that's really the only thing I think we really touched on with Will of D in this. On that note, one tiny detail I liked, however, is like how everything else with Ace's journey that began in Wano. We also see that Wano is where Ace had basically obtained had gotten the record. The card he would inevitably give to Luffy, and how that also originated in Wano. So it really puts Wano in the epicenter of everything, really. And in that sense, it really put up Wano in the epicenter in a way that says, everything, it kind of begins and ends with Wano in a way. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I've got. Just tell me in the comment section what you think. What did you guys honestly think of this honestly amazing chapter? Because it was really, if there was any other way that Prince Oda could have celebrated 1,000 chapters, this is it. But yeah, guys, just tell me what you think below. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.